506 new coronavirus cases on Sunday. World Health Organization says Nigeria is not disqualified from access to COVID-19 vaccines, contrary to world reports over the weekend. In international news, hundreds of thousands of people in Myanmar protest against military rule, demand democracy. And in sport, African professional golfers to participate in Bayelsa Governors Cup International Golf Tournament.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. 506 new cases of the coronavirus were recorded in the country on Sunday. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control confirms the highest number of infections. 90 was posted in Ondo, with Kwara reporting 89, Rivers reported 53, Ondo 45, and Gombe 32. The Federal Capital Territory and Lagos each recorded 28 and 22. Unusually pushed them way down in their tally. 7 other states recorded cases in low double digits. Cases in single digits were reported in 6 states. This puts Nigeria's total confirmed cases at 139,748, while 113,525 patients have been discharged. Death toll related to the pandemic stands at 1,667. The World Health Organization says Nigeria is not disqualified from access to COVID-19 vaccines, contrary to rabid reports that circulated over the weekend. WHO country representative Walter Malumbo said no country in Africa was barred. Malumbo said in a statement, the UN agency is working to ensure every African country is being supported to quickly access vaccines through the COVAX facility. He said the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine could become available for access to African countries by the end of this month. Malumbo said Nigeria has received the largest allocation of 16 million doses of the 88 million AstraZeneca doses allocated to Africa during the first phase. He says it would be impracticable to provide every African country with a Pfizer vaccine doses because of many factors that include limited capacity for Pfizer to handle simultaneously. Malumbo said the UN agency has decided to ensure the doses were proportionately balanced between self-financing participants and all 6 WHO regions. The issue of Fulani herdsmen relationship with the Southwest and Southeast is still taking center stage in many areas. The Northern Governors Forum is encouraging southern states to find and isolate criminal elements among the herdsmen and ensure they face the fury of the law. The forum says it is worried that the activities of the criminal elements are causing a particular ethnic group to be tagged in a negative light. The forum's chairman and Plateau State Governor Simon Bako Lalong said in a statement on Saturday, Nigerians have the right to live wherever they desire in the country without molestation or discrimination. He warned danger to peaceful coexistence and national unity lurks if a region of the country discriminates against a particular ethnic group and continues to molest its members. He said the way to fend off such danger is to identify and isolate criminal elements among the group and to have them face the law. The Northern Governors Forum calls for calm across the country and that, quote, leaders across political, ethnic, religious, and community lines should also avoid utterances and actions that further fan the embers of distrust, hate, violence, and retaliation, which can easily escalate the situation and cause chaos. Meanwhile, leader of Fulani herdsmen and secretary of Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria in Kano State, Zubair Ibrahim, says Fulani herdsmen have begun retreating from the southwest, southeast, and other parts of the country. He says the herdsmen have expressed interest in relocating to the Kano-Ruga settlement. Ibrahim says herdsmen from 5 states, including Nasarawa, Niger, Enugu, and Oyo, have already relocated to Kano. He also said the group in Kano also has Fulani herdsmen from Kebbi, Zamfara, Kaduna, Sokoto, and Jigawa. He said the group is ready to welcome any herdsmen, heeding the Kano governor's invitation, quote, if they are good people, end quote. He laid out conditions for the operation at the Ruga settlement. They must follow government rules and regulations, only going for grazing in the afternoon and not at night. Kano Governor Abdullahi Ganduje recently said herdsmen should no longer move their animals cross-country from north to south. He said this would end the frequent clashes between herders and farmers across the country. She's smiling broadly now after the United States declared its support for her appointment as the next Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO. The endorsement of Nigeria's former Finance Minister and former Director General of the World Bank, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, was announced by the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative at the weekend after South Korea's Trade Minister Yoo Moon-hye withdrew her candidacy. The statement expressed the Biden administration's strong support for Okonjo-Iweala. The former finance minister took to her Twitter handle to thank President Muhammadu Buhari and Nigerians for their support. She also congratulated the South Korean trade minister for what she called a hard-fought campaign. A question on the repayment plan for the nearly $2 billion loan for the construction of the Nigeria to Niger rail line appeared to have dropped the Transportation Minister Rotimi Amechi during a television interview over the weekend. After confirming the Kano to Maradi Niger Republic rail line, which has been a subject of controversy, would cost $1.9 billion, and after disclosing the federal government would source for the funds from, quote, Mr. Europe, Amechi could not explain how the government would repay the loan. He deflected the question to the Ministry of Finance, saying it is that ministry's responsibility to explain, quote, when we will repay, what the terms are, end quote. He said his ministry's job was to work with the Ministry of Finance, get the loan, and begin construction. Coming up, African stories. More than 4 million IP addresses stolen in South Africa. And later, international news. Hundreds of thousands of people in Myanmar protest against military rule, demand democracy.
You are watching ANN.
This is a public service announcement on your National Identification Number, NIN. First, dial *346# to get your NIN and write it down. This will enable you link your NIN to all your numbers easily. You can now use any of these 4 ways to link your NIN to all your MTN lines. 1. Dial *785*NIN#. 2. Visit My MTN app. 3. Visit www.nin.mtnonline.com. 4. Text your NIN number to 785. Remember, this includes your data SIMs and other alternate lines. For those without NIN, visit the NIMSI website to find a registration location. Avoid disconnection. Link your NIN to all your MTN lines before 9th February 2021.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The 34th ordinary session of the Assembly of the African Union, AU, ended on Sunday amid COVID-19 concerns and a joint commitment in the fight against the pandemic. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who ended his run as chairperson, told the virtual gathering that the AU has made huge progress in the fight against COVID-19 and in sustainable development. He emphasized the prosperous future of Africa can only be built through unity and cooperation. Chairperson of the AU Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, who secured a second term, also stressed the importance of common development of African countries through culture and art heritages. The Democratic Republic of the Congo officially took over the rotating chair of the continental bloc from South Africa. New AU Commission officials, including chairperson and deputy chairperson, as well as commissioners who will serve a 4-year term, were also elected. Many African countries are doing their best to secure as many millions of COVID-19 vaccine doses for their citizens. The African Center for Disease Control and Prevention has announced more than 400 million doses to which African countries would have access. Uganda is not taking chances. It has also ordered 18 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Correspondent Hilary Ayesiga reports.
A move to contain the COVID-19 pandemic, Ugandan authorities are procuring vaccines.
The Ministry of Health, working together with the national medical stores, has placed an order for 18 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from the Serum Institute of India, which will be used to vaccinate persons from the age of 50 years and above.
It will cost the Ugandan government $17 to vaccinate every person eligible for the treatment. The country is also due to receive another 3.5 million doses via the COVAX program, which was set up by the World Health Organization to help poor and middle-income countries access the coronavirus vaccine. Ugandan health workers say the first batch of vaccines will be used to treat the elderly, persons with underlying health conditions, and first responders, among others. Unlike its East African neighbors, Uganda has been spared the worst of the virus. The country has so far recorded over 39,000 cases and more than 300 deaths, a figure much lower than Kenya, which has recorded over 100,000 cases. Ugandan scientists attribute the progress to increased testing capabilities, contact tracing, and treatment of those found positive.
We had all the facilities to look after our cases. That's why we registered significant improvement. That's why the country has been high rank among the 10 globally, because we suppressed the transmission of COVID-19 by the end of August.
But this success could be short-lived as the country continues to register a spike in cases.
If we don't change our mindsets, we don't really reflect and follow the standard operating procedures, we shall not be far from what we've seen from other parts of the country. So the worst case scenario is yet to come. That's why I'm here, that's why you are there. We don't want Uganda to reach to such a situation. We want to prevent people from dying.
And as they wait for the vaccines to arrive in the country, the government is urging the locals to wash their hands frequently with soap, wear masks, and practice social distancing. With these health precautions, local authorities hope to curb the spread of the virus.
Can you believe this? More than 4 million IP addresses, mostly belonging to South African organizations, have been stolen over the past decade, and fewer than half of them have been recovered and returned to their rightful owners. What would IP thieves do with such a haste? Correspondent Travis Andrews has the answer.
It's been called the Great African IP Address Heist that has claimed some of South Africa's biggest companies as its victims. More than 4 million IP addresses have been stolen from the African Network Information Center, which is responsible for managing and allocating IP addresses on the continent. Most of the addresses stolen came from South Africa and included very valuable legacy addresses.
These are IP addresses that are quite valuable, that were assigned to companies in the very early days of the internet, and they don't attract annual membership fees or any other kind of renewal fees from Afrinic, which makes them quite valuable for companies who would like large amounts of IP addresses and not have to be beholden to anybody for those IP addresses.
Companies that were affected include Nedbank, Nampak, and retail giant Woolworths, who had 3 IP blocks equating to 200,000 individual addresses stolen. Even the City of Cape Town's Directorate of Information Services was affected, as well as the Free State Department of Education, which lost addresses worth over $1.3 million.
It is roughly 82 million US dollars. The extent of this crime, and that's assuming an IP address is worth roughly 20 US dollars each. That was a conservative estimate that I've received from people inside the industry. And these IP addresses, this is what they go for on the open market, on the reseller market. This is not like some necessarily shady market.
Even though the theft of IP addresses affected so many companies and organizations, experts say most were not even aware that the actual fraud even took place. While more than 1.5 million IP addresses have already been reclaimed, most others are still pending until the rightful owners have been identified. The sheer scale of this fraud, though, has underlined the enormous negative impact cybercrimes are having on South African companies.
When we return, international news. Hundreds of thousands of people in Myanmar protest against military rule, demand democracy. And later, sport. African professional golfers to participate in Bayelsa Governors Cup International Tournament.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Martial law was declared on Monday in parts of Myanmar, including Yangon and second largest city Mandalay, after hundreds of thousands rallied across the country. The military also issued stern warning against further protests. The massive and widespread protest spilled into a second day on Sunday, with crowds taking over the streets of Myanmar's biggest city, Yangon, demonstrating against last week's military coup that ousted their democratically elected leader and kept her in detention along with other government leaders. The crowd chanted, "We don't want military dictatorship, we want democracy." Military authorities ended a day-long blockade of the internet, which had inflamed the people's anger since the coup last Monday upended the country's exercise in democracy. International outrage has been swift. Pope Francis expressed solidarity with the people on Sunday and asked Myanmar's leaders to seek democratic harmony. The United Nations estimates 1,000 persons joined a protest in the nation's capital, more than 220 miles north of Yangon. More than 60,000 demonstrators were reported in Yangon. Protests were also reported in the second city of Mandalay and many towns and villages across the country of 53 million people. The Yangon protesters dispersed after dark, saying they would return if their demands were not met. The Greek National Health Organization says the country has reported more than 1,000 newly confirmed COVID-19 cases on Saturday, and for the fifth consecutive day, the national cumulative total of coronavirus cases reached more than 163,000, with a death toll of nearly 6,000. 232 confirmed cases of infections were found to be of the new coronavirus variants found in the UK, and 4 confirmed cases of infections with the new variants found in South Africa. Latest data from the Greek Ministry of Education showed 336 schools have been shut down as a result of COVID-19. The Greek government said on Friday, increasing COVID-19 cases has forced the Attica area, where the capital, Athens, is located, and Greece's second largest city, Thessaloniki, to begin a position of stricter epidemic prevention and control measures that include a weekend curfew from 6 p.m. local time to 5 a.m. the next morning. Supermarkets operating times have also been reduced, and primary and middle schools are still open, while high school students take classes at home. Mexico is one of the countries where many citizens depend on remittances from relatives living abroad, especially in the U.S. Hundreds of millions of dollars flow into the Mexican economy each year through such remittances. As Alex Dyer-Beverstock reports, even the COVID-19 pandemic has not stopped the rise of these remittances.
After migrating to the US in 1985, Fernando Lagunas has worked to build a life in Illinois. Today, he owns his own construction business there, but it hasn't been easy. Like many first-generation Mexican Americans, emigrating didn't absolve him of his responsibilities back home.
But that's what I've been doing. I mean, not just me, my brothers, they help a lot, my family. I don't send too often, but when I send money, I don't send just a little. I always send like $1,000 because it costs to send it.
He's not alone. Nearly every family here in this town has a member north of the border, sending an average of $300 every 2 weeks.
Mexican towns like Tonatico depend almost entirely on remittances sent by family members who have migrated for work to the United States, to such an extent that this town's economy depends more on US dollars than Mexican pesos.
Indeed, remittances of US dollars are a major economic driver for this country, representing nearly 4% of Mexico's GDP last year. And surprisingly, remittances grew significantly during a year marked by pandemic and economic devastation, totaling more than $40 billion, more than 10% higher than 2019's total. Vicente Tapia, back home from Chicago for the winter months, has a good idea of why that happened.
The U.S. government helped its citizens economically during the pandemic, so everyone with family in Mexico who received financial aid sent some of that money here.
For José de la Cruz, the director of a Mexican economic think tank, the growth of US dollars arriving here is a key factor in the Mexican economy's stability.
12 Mexican states depend heavily on remittances, and they are a stabilizing economic factor, both on a micro level for families who make investments with the money they receive, as well as the large segment they represent in the national GDP.
For those on the receiving end, like Vicente's wife, Maria Cristina, it's a vital income that even her US-born grandchildren will continue to send long after her husband retires.
The remittances are very important because the money is much more than we could ever earn here and goes a lot further. They are what allow us to survive.
Up next, sports. African professional golfers to participate in Bielsa Governors Cup International Golf Tournament. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, 26-year-old Super Falcons and Barcelona lady striker Aziza Toshuala has been voted Best African Woman Player of the Decade by the International Federation of Football History and Statistics. That organization chronicles the history and records of association football. Oshoala helped the Super Falcons win 3 consecutive African Women's Cup of Nations in 2014, 2016 and 2018. She was also voted Most Valuable Player of the tournament at the 2014 FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup in Canada. She was also African Women's Footballer of the Year in 2014, 2016, 2017 and 2019. Professional golfers from 4 African countries, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Gabon and Cameroon, will be part of the maiden Bielsa State Governors Cup International Golf Tournament scheduled for March. Permanent Secretary in Bayelsa Sports Ministry, Richie Otoye, says the golf tournaments will be played under the COVID-19 protocols. He said awards for overall winners will include a car and many good prizes. Otoye said the tournament is to drive tourism development in those states. That is in the news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.